When I was fired from my job as a manager at a successful restaurant in Winnipeg, I had came to a new point in my life where I felt like I had achieved a lot for a 24-year-old, from having owned a business to helping own one of the most successful restaurants in the city. I didn't know what would be next. I felt like I had put a lot into the restaurant industry and I had not received much back. And for the first time, when I lost my job, this time I recognized that I was not in control of my situation. I remember calling up my dad and being in tears and said, I need to talk to you. I need to talk to our pastors, and I need to figure out what to do next, because I didn't know what to do next. I was pretty certain that I needed to move away. I felt like all of the relationships that I had made in the industry were very casual, and I didn't have any close friends. People who knew me from before hadn't seen me for years because I was working so much. And I needed a change. I remember meeting with my dad and a couple of friends of his who are real spiritual mentors in his life and my life now. I remember meeting at their house and sharing where I was at emotionally. I don't remember everything I shared, but I know that the Holy Spirit was there in that moment. I remember them praying over me, and for the first time being able to have a real conversation with my dad in so many years. I remember just shaking. Both of us were just shaking. And it was just this crazy moment. It was really intense. And I felt like I had it in my heart to look to BC, to look to Vancouver for a job and a new start. I'd always loved the mountains, and I dreamt of moving to BC, but with commitments like a house and a job and a business and relationships, I never was able to move. But now I was completely free from all of my commitments and recognized that it was time to take a step forward and not backwards. I remember my plan was to drive to BC, stay at my aunt and uncle's for 2 weeks, and in that time, look for jobs, say hi to people, and drop off resumes and find a place to live. I drove out here, spent the 2 weeks in Vancouver, got a job, got a place to live, both downtown, a really good job for a professional restaurant company, really successful. And I thought, okay, my life is going to look like this now, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to seek personal change as well. I got connected with a church in Vancouver called Coastal Church, and when I went back and reported the news to my family, they were really excited for me. They knew that they needed to let me go and try out a different location. They knew that I needed to be meeting good people who were not going to steer me down the path that I had been on. And it was a really special time for us as a family to say, hey, like life has gone pretty sour, but this is an opportunity for a new start. And so I packed up my car and sold everything except my snowboard and a few personal items and some clothes, and just moved out to BC. And that was my first experience with a Christian community since I was in high school. When I went to Coastal Church, it was a big church, and I didn't know anyone there. I started going to an Alpha course, and I started making relationships with people there who I would see regularly. At my workplace, I soon realized that my regional manager and one of the other servers was going to Coastal Church as well. In fact, this server was a youth leader at this church. And so right away, this coincidence to me felt very real, and I recognized that, okay, I think this is something more than just my doing. So right away I felt like moving to Vancouver had been affirmed by God. I had no relationship with him yet, but I knew that just by reaching out to other people that they would help guide me in a new way. Life in Vancouver was really fun. I loved the downtown area and getting to know the neighborhoods. It's a beautiful city. It's got beautiful people. And I loved connecting with the Alpha group and the church there. But I was very one foot in the door, one foot out the door. It soon became easy to find people who were similar to the people that I had been hanging out with in Winnipeg. Soon the drugs came back. Everything was bigger, faster, shinier, more expensive, sexier, and I was quickly swept back into that lifestyle. I was just too weak to do it on my own. I was too weak to have the discipline to say no, and I was too weak to give things up. I was still very focused on myself. I was still very focused on my goals and how I was perceived by other people, just that need for attention and appreciation. I remember going to church on a Sunday morning and hearing the words being sung in the worship songs, and I remember conviction starting to set into my heart to the point where it felt like there was a 20-pound weight in my chest, and I couldn't even sing a word in the song. I started realizing that God was chasing me. One day when I was managing at the restaurant in Vancouver, I talked to these people who happened to be on the patio, and this is a 300-seat restaurant, and I have a conversation with this one couple, and they tell me that they have a business in Whistler, and that they really appreciated my service to them that day. And it led to a conversation outside of work, and they told me that they would like to hire me to help manage their business in Whistler. I wasn't looking for another job, but I knew that living and working downtown Vancouver wasn't what I was called to do in BC. I knew that God was working in my life, and I knew that the decisions and the choices I'd been making in Vancouver were not what he had for me. And I couldn't help but sense that God's hand was in this meeting, this encounter. You know, I think we can often look at situations in our lives as coincidences or conveniences. And if we have his perspective on it, we see how he pulls people from around the world to interact with each other and for lives to be changed. And that was a moment in my life that I can look back now and say, God wanted me to meet that person that day.